No dirty dogs allowed in our school. A security guard snapped at the veteran's face. The former soldier remained silent, gripping his service dog's leash tightly. The next morning, the entire school froze during the flag ceremony when the governor's voice came through the PA system. What made those who once ignored him bow their heads in apology? Welcome to QH. Let's uncover what really happened. Damien Cross adjusted the service vest on Valor, his German shepherd, before walking his niece Sophie toward Lincoln Hill Elementary's main entrance. At 38, Damien still carried himself with military bearing, spine straight, shoulders squared, movements precise. The only visible signs of his combat injuries were the occasional tremor in his right hand and the barely perceptible scar above his left temple, where shrapnel had entered during his final deployment. 3 years had passed since his medical discharge from the Marines after suffering a traumatic brain injury in Afghanistan. The physical wounds had mostly healed, but the invisible damage remained: memory lapses, sudden headaches, and the panic attacks that could leave him disoriented and struggling to breathe. That's where Valor came in. The specially trained service dog could detect the subtle changes in Damien's body chemistry that preceded an episode, providing grounding pressure and a focus point that had proven more effective than any medication. "Are you sure they'll let Valor in, Uncle Damien?" Sophie asked, clutching her Student of the Month certificate. Her mother, Damien's sister, couldn't attend the awards ceremony due to her hospital shift, and Damien had promised to be there. "It's the law, sweetheart," he replied with a reassuring smile. "Service dogs are allowed everywhere their handlers go." "Remember how we practiced?" Sophie nodded seriously. "Valor is working? We can't pet him without asking. He helps you stay safe." Damien squeezed her hand gently. "That's exactly right." Valor walked perfectly at heel, his official service vest clearly displaying certification patches and ID. Unlike emotional support animals or pets, service dogs underwent thousands of hours of training to perform specific tasks for people with disabilities. Valor wasn't just Damien's companion, he was medical equipment that happened to breathe. As they approached the school entrance, a heavy-set security guard stepped forward, hand raised. "Stop right there. No animals allowed on school property." Damien kept his voice calm, the same tone he'd used to diffuse tense situations during his deployments. "Good morning, this is Valor, my service dog. Federal law permits no dogs." The guard's voice rose sharply. "School policy. No exceptions." Parents and children turned to watch the confrontation. Sophie's hand tightened in Damien's. "Sir, I understand your concern," Damien continued evenly, "but the Americans with Disabilities Act specifically protects service animals. Valor is trained to—" "I don't care what you call it," the guard interrupted. "No dirty dogs allowed in our school. We have children with allergies. We have health codes. He's not dirty," Sophie protested, her voice small shadows cleaner than most people. The guard ignored her, speaking into his radio. "I need backup at the main entrance. Got a situation with an unauthorized animal." Parents waiting nearby began muttering. One mother pulled her child closer as though Valor might suddenly attack. Another checked his watch impatiently. "This is ridiculous," someone murmured just loud enough to be heard. "Bringing a dog to school. What next?" No one stepped forward to help. No one questioned the guard's decision, or mentioned the law Damien had referenced. Instead, they watched with the detached interest of audience members, unwilling to become involved in someone else's problem. Sophie's eyes filled with tears as she looked up at her uncle. Everyone's staring. Damien felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the beginning of the stress response that could spiral into a full episode. Valor immediately pressed against his leg, performing his trained task without command. The pressure helped Damien stay grounded as he assessed his options. He could escalate the confrontation, insist on his legal rights, demand to speak with administrators, or he could spare Sophie further embarrassment and leave quietly. Looking down at his niece's tear-streaked face, Damien made his decision. He knelt to her level, gently wiping a tear from her cheek. "We'll go, Em. This isn't your special day to be ruined, but it's not fair," she whispered. "No," he agreed softly. But sometimes fighting isn't worth the cost." With one arm around Sophie and the other holding Valor's leash, Damien turned away from the school entrance, ignoring the whispers that followed them. When everyone turns away, only conscience remains. Stay with us to see what happens next to this veteran. What the security guard and onlookers couldn't have known, what few civilians ever truly understood, was exactly who Damien Cross was and what he had sacrificed for his country. The Silver Star citation, framed but rarely displayed in Damien's modest apartment, told part of the story. During an ambush in Afghanistan's Helmand province, then Captain Cross had led a counter-assault that saved his platoon, carrying 2 wounded Marines to safety while under direct enemy fire. The traumatic brain injury that ended his military career came during that rescue, when an explosion threw him against an armored vehicle. Valor wasn't an ordinary dog either. The German Shepherd had been specially matched with Damien through the Wounded Warrior Service Dog Program, a non-profit that paired highly trained service animals with veterans suffering from physical injuries and PTSD. Valor wore his credentials around his neck, a professional service dog ID and military-style tags that clearly identified his status, all visible to anyone who bothered to look. The afternoon following the school incident, Damien sat on his apartment balcony, watching Sophie play in the complex small garden. Valor lay at his feet, alert even in rest. The rejection at the school had affected Damien more deeply than he wanted to admit. It wasn't just about missing Sophie's ceremony. It was the familiar sensation of being viewed as broken, different, someone whose needs were an inconvenience rather than a right. His phone buzzed with a notification. A parent had uploaded a video of the morning's confrontation to a community Facebook page. The comments beneath it made Damien's stomach tighten. Why do these vets think the rules don't apply to them? Special treatment everywhere. My kid has allergy. His health matters more than someone's comfort animal. If he's too damaged to function without a dog, maybe he shouldn't be around children. Valor sensed the change in Damien's physiological state, and immediately pressed his body against Damien's legs, providing the deep pressure therapy that helped interrupt anxiety spirals. Damien placed a grateful hand on the dog's head, focusing on the sensation rather than the hateful comment. His sister Laura called an hour later, furious after seeing the video. "This is outrageous. They can't do this. It's discrimination." Her voice crackled with indignation. "I'm calling the school board. Let it go, die." Damien replied, exhaustion evident in his voice. "It's not worth putting Sophie in the middle of a fight. The hell it isn't. Sophie was in tears when I got home. She kept saying it wasn't fair that Valor couldn't come in when he helps you." Damien closed his eyes. Sophie had always been fiercely protective of him, even at 9 years. "I'll talk to her. Explain that sometimes people don't understand." "No, Damien, sometimes people need to be made to understand." After hanging up, Damien tried to return to normal routines, but the incident kept replaying in his mind. That evening, a local news website published a brief article with the inflammatory headline, "Veteran Causes Disruption at Elementary School Awards Ceremony." The piece mentioned nothing about service dog regulations or Damien's legal rights under the ADA. Anonymous text messages began appearing on his phone. "Not everyone wants to deal with your problems. Keep your PTSD dog at home. School is for normal kids, not military propaganda." Damien deleted them without response, but each one stung. After losing teammates and nearly his life in service to his country, this was how some viewed him, as an attention seeker, a disruption, someone demanding special treatment rather than basic rights. Late that night, as Damien struggled with insomnia, another unwelcome souvenir from his service, an email arrived from an unfamiliar address, jparker@state.gov. The message was brief. "Mr. Cross, I apologize for what happened today. Please don't lose faith. We've forwarded documentation of the incident to appropriate authorities. This isn't over." Damien stared at the screen, puzzled. Who was Jay Parker? How had they gotten his email address? And what did they mean by appropriate authorities? Before he could reply, another email arrived, this one from Lincoln Hill Elementary's principal, Dr. Angela Kim. "Mr. Cross, I understand there was an unfortunate incident this morning regarding your service animal. While we sympathize with your situation, I must inform you that disrupting school functions can have legal consequences. Our security staff are authorized to make judgment calls regarding campus safety. I trust this matter is now resolved." The implied threat was clear. Rather than an apology, the school was doubling down, painting Damien as the problem rather than recognizing their legal violation. He set his phone down, a familiar sense of isolation washing over him. It was the same feeling he'd experienced when first returning from Afghanistan, the disconnect between the values he'd fought to protect and the reality of how those protections sometimes failed in practice. Valor rested his head on Damien's knee, dark eyes watching his handler's face with unwavering loyalty. "They didn't teach us how to fight this kind of battle, did they, boy?" Damien whispered, scratching behind the dog's ear. The next morning, another email arrived, a formal notice from the school, stating that Damien was prohibited from disrupting school functions and that any future visits would require prior administrative approval. Damien printed the email, folded it carefully, and placed it in a folder alongside the ADA service animal regulations he'd tried to explain to the security guard. Then he sat at his small desk and began researching disability rights attorneys. Valor lying patiently at his feet. "We defended their freedom," he told the dog quietly. maybe it's time someone defended ours. If you've ever witnessed an innocent person being insulted just for their courage, type unfair. 3 days after the incident, Damien sat in his living room, weighing his options. The attorney he'd consulted had been clear. The school had violated federal law, and he had grounds for a substantial lawsuit. But Damien hesitated, concerned about dragging Sophie into a public battle that might make her a target for bullying or resentment. Valor lay at his feet, alert to his handler's stress levels. The faithful dog had been Damien's lifeline since his medical discharge, sensing oncoming panic attacks before Damien himself was aware of them, providing deep pressure therapy during episodes, and giving him a reason to maintain routines when depression threatened to overwhelm him. Looking at Valor, Damien remembered the countless fellow veterans who lacked similar support, men and women whose service-related disabilities remain invisible to a society that often preferred not to see the true cost of war. His rejection at the school wasn't just about him. It represented a broader failure to honor the rights and needs of those who had sacrificed for their country. It's not just about us, is it, boy? He said quietly to Valor. It's about the next veteran who shows up with a service dog. His decision crystallized. He wouldn't file a lawsuit, but neither would he remain silent. He began drafting a formal complaint to the Department of Justice, documenting the ADA violation in clear, unemotional language. As he worked, his phone rang. The caller ID showed Lincoln Hill Elementary. Miss Cross came the cautious voice of Miss Reed, Sophie's teacher. I'm calling about tomorrow's assembly. We're having a special presentation on citizenship, and she paused. I think it's important that Sophie's family attends. Damien's instinct was to decline. I appreciate the invitation, but given what happened, please, she interrupted, her voice dropping to nearly a whisper. It's important, and bring Valor. Something in her tone made Damien reconsider. The next morning, with Valor properly vested and Sophie bouncing excitedly beside them, they approached Lincoln Hill Elementary once more. This time a different security guard greeted them at the entrance, a young woman who smiled at Valor and merely asked them to sign the visitor log. The auditorium was packed when they arrived. Students sat cross-legged on the floor while parents and teachers lined the walls. Principal Chen stood at the microphone on stage, leading the Pledge of Allegiance. Her eyes widened noticeably when she spotted Damien and Valor at the back of the room. As the pledge concluded, the principal cleared her throat. Before we continue with our regular assembly, I need to address a matter that has been brought to my attention. Yesterday afternoon, my office received an important. The PA system suddenly crackled to life. Kim, please take an urgent call from the governor's office in your office immediately. A collective gasp rippled through the assembly. Dr. Kim froze, her expression shifting from confidence to uncertainty in an instant. She hurried off stage as murmurs spread through the audience. Parents exchanged puzzled glances. Teachers whispered among themselves. 5 minutes passed in growing confusion before the principal returned. Her face had lost all color. With visible reluctance, she approached the microphone. Students and parents, she began, her voice slightly unsteady. I've just spoken with Governor Pierce. She swallowed hard. It appears our school has been involved in a significant violation of federal law regarding the rights of a decorated veteran. The PA system crackled again, and suddenly the governor's voice filled the auditorium. This is Governor Pierce speaking directly to the Lincoln Hill Elementary community. It has come to my attention through multiple channels that a Marine Corps veteran with a Silver Star for Valor was denied entry to your school with his properly certified service dog in direct violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The auditorium fell completely silent. Former Captain Damien Cross served 3 combat tours defending the very freedoms we often take for granted. The traumatic brain injury he sustained while saving fellow Marines earned him not only a Silver Star but also the right to have his service animal accompany him in all public facilities including school. Miss Winters appeared at Damien's side, gently guiding him and Sophie toward the front of the auditorium. Students turned to stare as Valor maintained perfect heel position beside Damien. I am personally disappointed that a school in our state would fail to understand and honor both federal law and our obligation to those who have served. The governor continued. This isn't merely about following regulation. It's about showing proper respect to those who have sacrificed for our country. Principal Chen's expression cycled between mortification and barely controlled panic as the governor continued. I'm instructing the State Department of Education to immediately implement mandatory training on ADA compliance for all school personnel, starting with Lincoln Hill Elementary. Furthermore, I will be visiting your school next week to present Captain Cross with a State Honor Medal, and to officially recognize his service dog Valor, with the first Service Dog of Honor designation in our state's history. By now Damien had reached the front of the auditorium. Hundreds of eyes focused on him and Valor, the veteran they had dismissed days earlier.
now standing tall as the governor of their state personally defended his rights. Until my visit, the governor concluded, I expect Captain Cross and Valor to receive every courtesy and respect due to them, under both federal law and basic human decency. America's commitment to her veterans doesn't end when they take off the uniform. In fact, that's when our real obligation begins. The connection ended. Principal Chen attempted to regain composure, adjusting her glasses nervously. Captain Cross, she said, voice amplified through the microphone. On behalf of Lincoln Hill Elementary, I offer our sincere apologies for the treatment you and Valor received. We failed in our obligation to uphold both the law and the values we teach our students. She gestured toward the stage. Would you and Valor please join me? Damien hesitated, then climbed the steps, Valor moving fluidly beside him. Standing before the assembled school, Damien felt a complex surge of emotions. He hadn't wanted this spotlight or this fight. He'd simply wanted to support his niece with the assistance he legally required. Principal Chen handed him the microphone. Hundreds of faces stared up at him. Children, parents, teachers. Among them he spotted Sophie, her expression a mixture of pride and awe. I don't have much to say, Damien began quietly. Valor and I didn't come here for recognition or special treatment. We came because service doesn't end when the uniform comes off. He knelt down, placing one hand on Valor's back. This isn't just a dog. This is my battle buddy, my medical equipment, and sometimes my lifeline. What happened here wasn't just about me and Valor. It was about all of us understanding that disabilities aren't always visible. And accommodation isn't special treatment, it's equal access. For the first time since returning from Afghanistan, Damien felt tears gathering in his eyes. The freedoms I fought for include the right for all Americans, including those with disabilities, to participate fully in society. The auditorium remained silent for a heartbeat, then erupted in applause. Students rose to their feet, followed by parents and teachers, until the entire room stood in a spontaneous standing ovation. If you believe justice can begin with just one small action, type just. The weeks following the governor's intervention transformed both Lincoln Hill Elementary and the broader community surrounding it. The promised visit occurred with full media coverage, creating a powerful teaching moment about service animals, veterans' rights, and the true meaning of accessibility. Valor received his Service Dog of Honor medal during an outdoor ceremony, where students lined the walkway, watching with newfound respect as the German Shepherd maintained his dignified bearing. Despite the excitement, Governor Pierce personally attached the medallion to Valor's service vest, taking time to explain to the assembled children the vital role service animals play for veterans and others with disabilities. These animals aren't pets, the governor told the student. They're working professionals who enable their handlers to participate fully in society. Respecting service animals means respecting the independence and dignity of people with disability. For Damien, the most meaningful change wasn't the public recognition, but the private transformations he witnessed. The security guard who had initially barred them approached after the ceremony, offering a tearful apology. My brother served in Iraq, the man confessed. He struggles too, but I never really understood. I was enforcing a rule without thinking about the person it affected. I'm sorry. Principal Chen implemented changes that went far beyond the required training. The school established an annual Veterans Appreciation Day and incorporated education about service animals into their curriculum. Most touchingly, the art teacher directed a project where students created a mosaic for the main hallway, a beautifully rendered image of Valor in his service vest, with the words, "They served, they stood, they changed the world." Governor Pierce appointed Damien as a special advisor to the state's Veterans Affairs Office, where he helped develop programs to ease the transition from military to civilian life. Valor accompanied him to the office each day, becoming something of a mascot for the department. Perhaps the most profound testimony came from 10-year-old Miguel Rodriguez, a student who had witnessed the original confrontation. During a school essay contest about courage, his words captured what many had learned. I always thought being brave meant doing something noisy and big, like in superhero movies. But when I saw Mr. Cross with Valor, I learned that sometimes the bravest thing is just standing quietly for what's right, even when everyone else looks away. And sometimes the strongest people are the ones who need a little help, like from a service dog named Valor. The essay continued. That day taught me that courage isn't about never being scared or never needing help. It's about facing difficult things and finding the support you need. Captain Cross fought for our country and Valor fights for him every day. They taught our whole school that being strong sometimes means admitting when you need someone by your side. For Damien, these words reflected the lesson he hoped would endure long after the publicity faded. During a quiet moment at the Veterans Affairs Office, he tried to explain it to a colleague. For years after my injury, I felt broken. he admitted, watching Valor doze beside his desk. I thought needing help made me weak. It took this dog to teach me that strength sometimes means accepting support. His colleague nodded, understanding, and it took you to teach an entire community that same lesson. Damien smiled, reaching down to stroke Valor's fur. The dog's eyes opened immediately, alert to his handler's need. Not just me, Damien corrected gently. It was both of us. A man and his dog standing together. Sometimes that's enough to change the world. Later, when asked by a reporter if he harbored resentment toward those who had initially rejected him, Damien's answer was simple. Valor doesn't hold grudges. I'm trying to follow his example. That day, as Damien stepped out of the school with Sophie at his side, and Valor by his heel, he didn't feel vindicated. He felt hurt, and for the first time in years he believed that maybe, just maybe, standing quietly in your truth was louder than all the noise against you. The medal on Valor's vest wasn't the reward. The real victory was in every child who now saw respect in a dog's eyes, and in every adult who chose to open theirs. As I've reflected on Damien and Valor's story over these past days, I keep returning to one question. How many times in our lives do we choose silence when we should speak up? It's easy to walk past injustice, easy to tell ourselves it's not our problem, not our battle. After all, standing up carries risks, social disapproval, conflict, potential backlash. Perhaps that's why so many parents and teachers said nothing that morning, when a veteran and his service dog were turned away. But Damien Cross knows something about risk. He knows what it means to put everything on the line for principles greater than himself. Though he chose to walk away from that first confrontation, he never stopped standing for what was right, and eventually that quiet dignity accomplished more than any angry demand could have. In our daily lives, we encounter countless small moments where we can choose to be passive observers, or active participants in creating the world we want to live in. When we see someone mistreated, do we speak up or look away? When we witness discrimination, do we intervene or tell ourselves it's not our business? The most powerful part of this story isn't the governor's dramatic intervention, or the public apology. It's the quiet transformation it sparked in individual hearts, from the security guard who recognized his mistake, to the student who learned a new definition of courage. Have you ever witnessed a quiet act of kindness, or brave, a moment when someone stood firm in their principles, even without an audience? Those moments matter. They ripple outward in ways we can't always predict, changing perspectives and planting seeds that may grow into greater understanding. We don't all face battlefield challenges like Damien did during his military service, but each of us encounters moments that test our character, moments when standing for what's right might cost us something. In those moments, we define who we truly are. The next time you witness someone being dismissed, overlooked, or treated unjustly because of a disability, difference, or need for accommodation, remember Damien and Valor. Remember that sometimes the most courageous action isn't dramatic at all. It's simply refusing to accept that some people deserve less dignity than others. There are warriors who carry no weapons. They fight with patience, with dignity, with quiet determination. They change the world not through force, but through the power of standing firm in their truth. Subscribe to QH Incredible Stories, where those who stand for what's right are never forgotten. Type remember if you believe that true courage needs no applause. We told their story, you gave it meaning. Thank you.